And welcome everybody to the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. We are looking at magnetohydrodynamic pressure here around planet Earth as the leading edge, the density wave of a coronal hole high-speed stream arrives. This is the last 4 hours of magnetohydrodynamic pressure out to about 12 Earth diameters. The scale depicted here is nanopascals. And this is the last video we will ever make, at least as a YouTube Live exclusive for the winter of 2021 to 2022. Again, that's the last 4 hours, modeled by the Space Weather Modeling Framework. Pretty homogeneous pressure here as the density wave, a weak one for a coronal hole high-speed stream, is showing up. So here's the GOES magnetometer, and these spiky sawtooth patterns that you're seeing in here, these are the arrival of some coronal hole high-speed plasma, at least the front end of it, the density shock wave. We'll show you the real-time solar wind momentarily. First, ground magnetic perturbations. Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. We showed you it from space. Here's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. This is the scale of nanotesla magnetic flux density for the past 4 hours. Spectacular imagery on today's in-depth space weather video of the closest star. And thanks for tuning in, all of you stargazers. Here's your real-time solar wind data, and you can see this uptick in the solar wind density over the past 12 hours, making only up to about 20 protons per cubic centimeter. NOAA was expecting geomagnetic unrest conditions because of this negative BZ component, but this shifted back into positive territory, as you can see up here, and that prevented geomagnetic unrest conditions. Current conditions are very slow solar wind, just about 300 kilometers per second. Solar wind density slightly elevated here at 13 protons per cubic centimeter. It's the leading edge of a coronal hole high-speed stream, not a coronal mass ejection. We forecasted that one to miss Earth. It was on the opposite side of the sun, and indeed it did. Miss Earth, that is. Next, looking at the heliospheric current sheet. Earth remains in a North Pole current sheet, depicted here in green. South Pole current sheet shown here in red. And we do have some activity rising in the southeast. We'll get to that momentarily. By the way, make sure you follow us on Twitch, twitch.tv/smashamash. We've already created one live stream about space weather. It also covered earthquakes and volcanoes. Here's a line of sight view. Again, Earth is in a North Pole current sheet at the moment, and Earth will be crossing the celestial equator today. The equinox is the moment when the Earth's equator crosses the sun's equator, and we'll be streaming live on YouTube. It's about 11:30 Eastern Daylight Time. Next, we're going to look at coronal holes, and we've got a well-defined one here. Also, some plasma reorientation happening around this region. If you watch that play through, you'll see a little bit of maneuvering going on there. There was a C4.6, I believe it was, class flare that came out of this active region, former sunspot 2971, I believe is what that one was called. We've got a new sunspot down here, 2972. And we've got some additional North Pole-oriented coronal holes rotating in over here, and a new active region rising down here in the southeast. So don't get too bored, folks. There's plenty of action to come during cycle 25. Next, your coronal hole line of sight plot showing the sun's B field, as well as coronal holes, and you can see the north solar polar field beginning to migrate here to the south. And some indication of the south doing the same. Probably this is the best piece of data you could see for the solar polar field reversal cycle. The main component of a solar cycle, it's not just sunspot counts. There's a lot more going on. The solar polar fields reverse. The sun's B field shown here in blue. Let's continue on as there's plenty more stuff to cover. Likelihood of major flares not all that high. Sunspot 2965 is still capable of producing some. It is quite a spectacular sunspot, and it's in its setting mode, so it should be quite picturesque. We've got some pictures of it. Solar activity pretty low here in the past couple of days. By the way, you're all invited to become members of the Smash team. We put up some exclusive content for gold and silver members just last night. Also, our gold and silver members get the GDAX Daily Report. If you support your favorite content creators on Patreon, consider supporting us on our own website. We had to get rid of Patreon because we needed additional capabilities, which we've provided at smashamash.com/smashteam. We just launched in October, so help us out by supporting the channel in a Patreon-esque fashion with some monthly subscription services. Silver's $2.99 a month. Gold is $9.99 a month. There's an annual Gold Up paid subscription as well. And you'll get all kinds of additional stuff nobody else gets to see at smashamash.com/smashteam. Next, looking at a slowed down image here. Series of images, rather, from the SDO in 171 angstroms. This is half the speed we normally show, 15 frames per second. Great filamentary absorption feature up here. Showing up dark instead of bright. That's an area where we're not seeing a lot of iron, but certainly a chemically rich area there. Down here where it's white, there's a lot of this species of iron. 171 angstroms, it's, I believe, iron 9 is the ion depicted there. And we'll show this in some additional some additional wavelengths as well. But first, a full disk view to show you not very many sunspots. There is an active region rising down here. That could be a sunspot. We've got 2972. And this is a sunspot too, so this one's going to get named 2973 today. And let's continue on here. Here's another slow-mo series of images in 94 angstroms, another ion spectra, an ionic spectra of iron. It's hot iron. And 94 angstroms is one of the best wavelengths through which to view solar flares. That is slowed down again. That's 15 frames per second, folks. So the largest flare of the past 24 was this C4.66. Peak flux was 740 this morning. Here's a full disk view in 94 angstroms. And that flare emanated from this former sunspot. Used to be called 2971. It's decayed to plage, I believe. And make sure you tune into our bonus features segment on twitch.tv/smashamash. We'll look real closely at the most current imagery of that. Here are some close-ups of this C4.6 flare. This is 15 frames per second. We'll let that play through one more time. That's the last 24 hours, by the way. We've also got this in some other wavelengths. There it is. Here's 193 angstroms. And you can see some plasma reorienting itself there, preceding the solar flare. And there's that flare. You can see reverberations. A bunch of waves radiating out from that flare. Almost like ripples on the surface of liquid. Spectacular imagery there, and some dimming as plasma reorients itself. Did it produce a coronal mass ejection? Did it produce any relativistic particles? We'll let you know in a moment. First 131 angstroms. We'll let this one play through twice. There's that C flare. as we bring you the most in-depth coverage on the internet of the closest star. None of those flares caused any, well, that one flare, I should say, didn't cause any relativistic particles to make it to Earth. There's your proton flux, pretty much flatlined over the past 3 days. KP index currently at 2. That's a measurement of global geomagnetism. Planetary K index of 2. KP2 is the calm geomagnetic condition. Next, a solar system forecast. Here's where heavenly bodies are now, just coming off a full moon. Here's where we'll be in 7 days, a crescent waning. I've also got a star chart. If you're up before dawn, you may see Mars, Venus, Saturn, Mercury, and Jupiter all rising ahead of the sun. It's a planetary pileup as the moon sets over Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. That's the time of day it was when we recorded the video. Please press like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Now, if you're ever wondering what planets are visible on Stereo A, head to the Stereo A page and just click this link right here that says what planets are currently visible, and it will tell you. Any guesses? Here's the view from Stereo A and animated imagery from Lagrange 5 and Lagrange 1, the location of the LASCO SOHO C3 seen here on the right, Stereo A Core 2 coronagraph seen here on the left, and that right there, my friends, is Mercury. No coronal mass ejections to cover. If you thought that C4.6 flare would have produced some, we don't see any. In any case, thanks for tuning into the video. Congratulations on realizing that the channel exists. Press like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Tell your friends and foes about us. Press the share button. Visit our links. Pick up some merch. Don't forget to Mensa, make Earth not suck again. May that solar wind be at your back. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-A-Mash, signing off from the Smash News Network, least busted name in news.